Hello, my friends. It is day 244, and we're reading Ezekiel chapter 18 through Ezekiel chapter 20. But before we get into our recap, I want to thank you for taking a moment to check out this video. Hopefully, you're finding the yearly Bible reading program to be incredibly helpful, to be a blessing, to be encouraging, and to be everything you need to create a healthy habit of reading the Bible. If you have not yet accepted the invitation, please take an opportunity to check out the description box below. And there you'll find the link that will take you directly to the YouVersion Bible app, where you can join a number of people reading the Bible every single day. And so we hope you would join us and be a part of this incredible movement. All right, listen, we're in the book of Ezekiel, and we have been reading this book for a number of days now. And we're continuing our understanding of the things that offend God as it relates to Israel's apostasy. Now, we've seen some of this in Jeremiah, but we're seeing it from actually, I like to think of Ezekiel as a continuation, since his time of prophesying kind of overlaps with the tail end of Jeremiah's prophecy or prophetic ministry. But now we're seeing that there is a continuation of the message that God wants to deliver. And one of the things we find in chapter 18 is the fact that God is not going to, he's not going to perform what we call generational curses. In fact, if you can think about this, what the family did had a direct reflection on the quality of life of the descendants. Here, God is saying the time is coming where every person will have to give an account for the way they live their life. And with that, the sins of the father will not be imputed on the children. Rather, in verse 4, he says the person who sins is the one who will die. Now, I found it interesting, the sort of sins that are mentioned. If you look at verse 11, it says the son does all the evil things his father would never do. You see that point? So you have instances, and we saw it in the Kings, where a son would not do what his father did, and a son would reform the ways of his father in his time of leading. So you can see that there were some differences where one may not act the way the other acted. One may do good, other may do evil. And then so you have to basically judge according to their behavior. But this is about to become the norm. And it says that the son might worship idols on the mountains, commit adultery, oppress the poor and helpless, steal from debtors by refusing to let them redeem their security. He worships idols, commit detestable sins, and lends money at excessive interest. So you see, listen at these sins. One might understand, committing adultery, worshiping idols on the mountain, committing detestable sins. But it's these things like oppressing the poor and the helpless, stealing debts from debtors, rather by refusing to let them redeem their security, lending money at excessive interest rates. I want you to pay attention to this idea of justice that is being portrayed here. I was actually listening to a rabbi talk about, firstly, it was talking about how to be successful, but then it went into what are the acceptable industries for a Jew. And one of the things that it stated was that whatever is done business-wise should be done in fairness, meaning you'll never see a covenant Jew robbing, stealing, killing in order to be successful. Those are things that go against their way of life. And you see this being brought out in the book of Ezekiel as they're reading through these words. It's not just things that they think about from a pious position, but rather it's a way of living. Their life is a life of piety, and that is not just simply what I do in the temple, but what I do with my life and in my life. I think this is the essence of what we're reading through the prophets, that in fact, it would be, you guys have mastered coming before me with the sort of reverent persona, but somewhere along the line, your heart is not connected. And that's what we're really after. Chapter 19 was pretty interesting because it talks about this funeral song that is to be sung for the princes of Israel who are going to be handed over to the Babylonian Empire. So Babylon is the huge threat that these prophets are concerned with, and that will continue to be the case until we get further along in the biblical narrative. In chapter 20, it outlines just the rebellion of Israel, the things that they had done to be worthy of the punishment that they're receiving. And God is essentially saying that he's doing this to protect his own reputation, his own name. In fact, you see in verse 9, I acted to protect the honor of my name. I would not allow shame to be brought on my name among the surrounding nations who saw me reveal myself by bringing the Israelites out of Egypt. So the issue is the world saw God deliver Israel from the Egyptians. Now the question is, how would the world react if they witness the very God who delivered his people to worship him allow all these things to go on without any consequence? It would defame his name to behave that way, to behave with such injustice and unrighteousness, rather than to just let them go on just because they're his people. Remember, the freedom of Israel was about sending a message to the nations, and how Israel worshiped the Lord was the biggest testimony for or against God. And this is why he's reacting this way. So very important matters going on here, and we're going to continue to study these things so we can understand how we should live in our life today. But I would love to know what you're thinking. So please leave your comments in the comment box below. Give us your feedback, and I believe we'll all be encouraged by it. But until next time, thank you for watching. Take care. God bless. And remember, live by the word.